One of the things as youth workers, we talked about, I'm going to take you back to the second one, accepting appropriate responsibility. Who here works with youth? Anybody up to, I would say, age 25 qualifies as working with youth? 2, 3, we've got several. Okay, great. This is going to apply to a lot of you. Now, we tend to focus on juveniles being up to 18, but as I said, it can be 22 or even 25. And in Indiana, they're currently working in the Department of Corrections with youthful offender programs geared all the way up into those age categories, realizing that the approach that you're taking with younger offenders is going to necessarily differ from the older offenders. All kind of reasons for that we don't have really time to go into. But we need to focus here for just a minute and identify who we're talking about. There are two types of kids. There's the kid in trouble and there's the troubled kid. Many of us who have gotten into working with kids were once kids in trouble ourselves. And some characteristics of a kid in trouble is that we grew up in a home that had some external boundaries. That is to say, our parents gave us set guidelines. We knew what the rules were. Now, we may have rebelled and chose to break them, and we didn't like them, and if you were like me, you might have butted against them every opportunity you had, but there were rules, and they were usually enforced consistently. We call that external boundaries or external controls. Another characteristic is, as a result of having those external controls applied and growing up in at least an atmosphere of some love and concern and positive regard, there has some internal controls. For example, when I was a rebel, in the height of my rebellion, when I would have nothing to do with church or God or even worse, Christians, there were some things I wouldn't do because I knew some of those things were going to destroy me. And I was so bent on the idea of I can go my own way and I can make it work for me that I was going to prove I could do it, and I could do it without God and Christianity and the church. I had those internal controls saying, no, there's some things, even though I want nothing to do with God, there's some things I won't do. Many of your clients are the same way. They have some internal controls. Another characteristic of a kid in trouble is they act out to meet a need. Usually it's a need for significance. And as you work with those kids, you're nodding your heads, you can see that those kids in trouble, they want to be significant. They want to be somebody. And, now contrast this to a troubled kid. A troubled kid on the outside looks just like a kid in trouble. You can't differentiate between the two by looking at them. You've got to dig deeper, and the first way that we can differentiate between the two is there are little or no internal controls. Kids I worked with in the group home typically had mother or had no father involved. Mother was usually in jail, in prison, or had a drug problem. The home they grew up in did not have rules, and what rules they had were enforced inconsistently, totally inconsistently. They may break a rule for staying out too late, so they get beaten up, cussed at, abused, and then they go out and they party all weekend. Mom says, yeah, go head out. Or they'll say, you're grounded, and grounding lasts a day or two, and mom wants to go get drunk, so mom says, well, I'll let you off grounding. There are no external rules in the home they grew up in. Also, and you can understand why, there's no internal controls. They lack consistent internal controls, is a better way of putting it. They may at some time say, you know what, I'm not going to mess with that. I may like my weed, but I don't mess with the hard stuff. And they can do that sometimes, but they struggle with consistency. And finally, the contrast there is acting out as a lifestyle. This is something they do all the time. They don't know any different. And if you confront them with how to meet their needs and you say, you know, there's a better way to meet their needs, they'll look at you like they're crazy, like you're crazy. What are you talking about? This is how everybody does it. Prime example of that is the need to be significant. I tell the kids all the time I'm working with, finish the sentence for me. If somebody disses you, how do you think they finish the sentence? You got to diss them back. You betcha. I have a right to what? I have a right to disrespect them back. I have a right to revenge. I have a right to anything I want to if somebody disrespects me. It's a lifestyle. And you try to convince them otherwise. It's an uphill battle because it has been that way from day one. How do they respond? This is very important because how kids in trouble respond to you as a staff, sorry this isn't in your notes, we're throwing this in for free. Those of you that are looking. How do they respond when you let them get away with a minor mess up? A kid slipping, you see they're trying really hard, you appreciate their effort, and they screwed up. How do they respond when you say, okay, I'm going to cut you a break this time? Well, a kid in trouble is going to see you as cutting her a break. Okay, thanks. You're right. I appreciate this because I really don't want to go back a level. I really don't want to lose a month, whatever. A troubled kid sees you as a sucker. Thanks, fool. And I'll get away with it tomorrow with a different staff when you're off. Oh, and by the way, you think you had something on me? You didn't have nothing on me, softy. You had to give me that break because if you didn't, I was going to tell on you. I got garbage on you and you know it. That's why they let me get away with that. In a similar way, what happens to a kid when you discipline them? Well, a troubled kid responds, they may rebel, but they know you mean business. Again, get back to external controls, the home they grew up in. They know you mean business. Their parents mean business. Their frame of reference is a home with consistent internal controls. A troubled kid, contrast that to a home with no consistent external controls. How's a person from that background going to react? They're going to cut off the relationship. I'll show you. You're going to discipline me. You don't love me anymore. You don't care about me. You talk about God, but really you just like getting people in trouble. Anybody hear anything like that before? Yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one. The last one, how about when you seek to correct an injustice? And here what I'm talking about is maybe when a staff didn't react properly. We all work with other staff who are human. But what happens when a staff messes up? When they're too hard on a kid, or when the kid was really innocent and they pinned something on them. Staff have bad days too. What happens when you go and straighten that out? Well, a troubled kid, a kid in trouble, is going to think you're the cure-all for their problems. Even they are going to say that, and they're going to develop that relationship with you that becomes unhealthy and says, when I get in trouble, I just go to this person. This person loves me, and love means they're going to bail me out. This is particularly true of kids who come from affluent homes, better off backgrounds. Their parents have always showed love by giving them things. And now they respond, or they expect you to respond with love by giving them what they need. A troubled kid, it reinforces their belief that you are the go-to person in every situation, and that she is the victim in every situation. He or she is always the victim. It's the number 2 thinking area we're going to talk about in a minute. And you just reinforce that because now you went to bat for them. And so what I would encourage you to do in this last situation when you're working with kids and you see a perceived injustice or a real injustice where a staff overreacted or was just flat out wrong, is whatever you feel the need to do totally behind closed doors. And when the offender comes to you and says, Chaplain, I got to talk to you. I got a real problem with this staff, is to put it all back on them. All of it. What did you do wrong? I even said to a kid one time, you know what? I'm willing to admit that the other staff in this situation was 99% of the problem. But until you added 1%, you didn't get shipped. And he got shipped to a different facility, a tighter facility with more rules and regulation. He was upset, and I said, until you gave your 1%, you didn't get shipped. So we always focus on the things they can control. You can't control that other staff, and if everything's out of your control, you're going to be miserable. Sorry, I can't help you. I can't change those things either. Well, we're going to look very quickly at some of the things that make up our life. All of us have beliefs, thoughts, feelings, action, behavior. And if you've studied any anthropology, you understand that different people have different models for how people function. What is it that makes you do what you do? Is it your beliefs? Is it your thinking? What combination? What grows out of what? So we're going to share with you our anthropological model. Fancy word there. The first piece is the beliefs. Second piece is our thoughts. Thoughts will influence emotions. And emotions influence behavior, and behavior give us results. What we're telling you, if you can understand this one piece, you'll understand where we're coming from. The church has historically concentrated on beliefs, and we as chaplains want to get to their beliefs. Very important. But what we have to help them understand is until it shows in your results, your beliefs really haven't changed. What we always want to do, you tell them you need to change, they want to change right here. They want to change behavior. Oh, I can do that. I can stand on my head for 30 days. I can stand on my head and gargle peanut butter to get out of here. What do you want me to do? I'll do it. Okay? But under pressure, you act out what you really believe.
All right.
Okay? So when we see you under pressure, that's when we know whether or not your beliefs have changed. One last piece of this is our results come around and reinforce or refine our beliefs. Whenever we get the results we don't like, they will come, like them or not like them, they come around and we either change our beliefs, modify them to accommodate the new input, or the second part is we just add on to them. Okay, it just says, you're right. I'm right, I can't trust anybody. And inevitably, when I talk about beliefs you have, and I'll have them list them, one belief that always comes up, can't trust anybody. I say, you know what? I'm going to prove to you that I'm clairvoyant. I can read your mind. And the kids are all going, yeah, this white boy's crazier than he looks. And I said, okay, check it out. I said, at one point in time in your life, you thought you could trust somebody. You may have to go back to when you were 3, but you thought you could trust somebody. And you trust them, and your thinking was, you know, if I can trust this person, I'm going to tell them a secret. Your emotions were closeness, an emotional bond with that person. Your behavior, you told them something you didn't want anybody else to know. What happened? You got burned. And I said, and at first you refined that belief and you said, you know what? I can trust some people, but it's got to be closer to me. I've got to watch more closely. You refined that belief. And then we went right around and we go all through the same thing again. And what happened again? They got burned. So what did they do? They refined it. And refined it, and the circle got smaller and smaller, and now at 15 or 16 or wherever they are when I get them, I say, you don't trust anybody. And rightfully so, and this model fits. And the same thing, they'll say, you know, I've been trying to do good. I've been trying to really do what I need to do to get out of here. But then somebody says something or does something to me, and I just go off. I can't help it. I say, you know what? You haven't changed what you really, truly believe. And when you're willing to attack that part of the problem, then we're going to get somewhere. I worked with a girl. I'm working with a girl currently last week. I laid this out for her. Been working with her for a couple of weeks. I said, here we go. This is the essence of what we're going to do together. And I laid this whole thing out for her. I'm telling you is the results you got. You're on probation, constant you're with your mom. You're actually not you're probation and house arrest. Constant problems with your family. You're doing miserable in school. Do you like the life you got? No. I said, then you need to attack these beliefs. And if I can show you that some of your beliefs are not working for you, willing to change, what'd she say?
Yeah.
She said no. No. She said no. I said, that's okay, because you know what? I'm teaching you this one-on-one as a favor to your mom. But I teach these in Wood Youth Center, and maybe you'll listen to me there. Her mom called me 2 days ago and said the cops are picking her up to take her to Wood tomorrow night. And when I visit her next week in the county lockup, I'm going to say, you know what? You don't have to listen to me now because I teach these in Department of Corrections too. We have to get the offenders to understand if you don't like your results, you can change your behavior if you want to. That's great, but it's going to last a little while. And under pressure, you're going to act out what you really believe. Okay? And it's like a train. You see all those arrows? It's like a train. And what happens when we try to change just the results or the behavior? What part of the train would that be? Huh? Rear. They don't have it anymore. It used to be the caboose, right? You try to stop a caboose on a train. Good luck. All right? You want to stop that train, what you going to change? I'm going for the engine. That's right, baby, the engine. And so if we're going to stop this train and you want different results, we got to attack the belief. Okay? If I go in and tell you what's wrong with you, I'm going to have a hard time getting them to listen to me. If I can tell them, you know what, I do this too, let me tell you how I've learned to counter it. And let me take you to the scripture that has helped me with this. Oh, now we've won an audience. Now we've got some open ears and open minds. For those of you that work with juveniles, we're going to cover just a slightly different angle here. We're going to talk about the sayings of a closed thinker. Some of you guys that don't work with juveniles, it might spill over to you. The street slang is kind of universal. The first thing you'll hear, the reason we say sayings, by the way, is because who here can read minds? We can't read minds, but boy, attitudes are a little bit easier to discern, aren't they? It's a little bit easier to intercept an attitude and say, you know, I think you're displaying an attitude of a closed thinker. But the ultimate way to get this across and to interrupt it and to point it out, pinpoint it, is what comes out of your mouth. Remember the actions in our therapeutic model? That's going to reveal what's going on back here in this brain. So what comes out of your mouth? Well, the first one is, ain't nobody going to tell me nothing nohow. That comes from Stuart Briscoe, by the way. Ain't nobody going to tell me nothing nohow. Can't nobody tell me what to do. Matter of fact, you ain't my mama or my daddy. Boy, if I heard this once, I've heard it 100 times. Between DOC and group home experience, you ain't my daddy. And I'm glad of it, I want to say. You know? And what are they saying? Look, I don't even listen to my daddy. Fool, what makes you think I'm going to listen to you? Can't nobody tell me nothing. I'm so far beyond listening to you. They used to say it like this, talk to the hand. Man, I wish that would have stayed around. That was so easy to pick on closed thinking. Here they got their hand extended, showing, keep that advice there to yourself. Don't even come my way with it. Keep it at arm's distance. It's like those old submarines. They've got a movie out now where they're doing some deep sea diving in those old scuba diving suits, and they have the metal, the brass helmet, right? Boy, that's closed thinking. And I love to picture that, draw on that picture of having on a brass helmet with a little bitty peephole, and a little bit of information can trickle in, and I can see the world through my little filter, but there ain't nothing getting in or out. Can't nobody tell me nothing. I decide on what's good and what's bad, and what advice I need and what advice I don't need. Closed thinking is like putting that helmet on. Another one is, this is stupid. You need to go to thinking area class. You need to go to cognitive rule. This is stupid. This is gay. This is dumb. Oh, how many, you know, and they're just trying to get you disarmed and saying, I'm not even going to try this. This isn't even worth my time. I'm not going to open my mind up to the possibility that there is an inkling of worthwhileness in what you're doing. Whatever. We did this training a few weeks ago at the place where my wife works, and she sat in on it and came home. She said, you know, you use some of those tactics because that's my favorite. Whatever. Okay, I'm mad, I'm shut down, my emotions are high, whatever. You know, don't tell, I'm not going to discuss it anymore. You're right, I'm wrong, whatever. Finally, we need to shut down our anger and open up our mind. 1994, O.J. Simpson. Who remembers the slow chase? You guys remember that? That should instantly bring to your mind a picture of a white Bronco going down the highway. Some of those pictures they showed on TV had the cars, the police cars. But most of the pictures, they just focused in on that white Bronco slowly going down the road. Right? No other cars, nothing around it. Not taking any exits, not making any U-turns, not pulling over the side, going one way down that highway. And there ain't nothing going to change my mind. I'm not going anywhere else. And when I'm angry and I'm hot, boy, I'm feeling like that, aren't I? Can't nothing get me to turn around and go. And if self-destruction is what is at the end of that highway, so be it, because I'm hot. And you can't tell me what to do now. So we look at what can we do to shut down our anger and open up our mind. I like to use the analogy of my billfold. What's in my billfold?
Money.
Huh?
Money.
Because you paid me some on break, right?
No.
Your ID.
My ID, what else? Pictures. What else? Huh? Credit cards. Driver's license, huh?
Personal stuff.
Personal stuff, okay? Now I got a question for you. How do you know?
That's what I got mine.
You're making an educated guess. But how do you know what's in here? This bad boy is closed. Huh? That's what you got in yours, and you're making an educated guess. And you're probably not far off, but the fact is it's a guess because my billfold is closed. And not only is it closed, I keep it where you can't even see it. Right? I keep it back here hidden. Now, remember, this is an analogy for our mind. When my mind is closed, why would I do that? What's the advantage? Protection.
Can't nothing get out.
Can't nothing get in, can't nothing get out. I'm safe. My billfold is safe in my back pocket. My mind is safe, closed. Ultimate protection. Can't nobody derail me. And if I've been abused and neglected my whole life, if I have found those results to be nasty and painful, boy, it's a whole lot easier to just tuck this thing away and say, ain't nobody getting in, ain't nobody getting out. All right? And these type of closed thinkers will sit in group with their arms folded, not giving you any problems at all. It's not, because there ain't nothing coming in or out. And other types of closed thinkers will argue with everything you say, because you got to be wrong and they got to be right. And closed thinkers will go headlong against those results because the thinking box on that therapeutic model is blacked out. There ain't nothing changing my thinking. Pharaoh was a closed thinker. Couldn't nothing change his closed thinking. Destroyed his nation, killed his family, but there wasn't nothing changing his mind. Now, so if we're telling people we've got to open our mind, ooh, what's this? Say that louder, please.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. You're absolutely right. This is vulnerable. This is uncomfortable. This is icky. If I walk around like this, I'm going to lose something. If I'm lucky enough to lose it, odds are somebody's going to take it. Right? Same way when I open up my mind, and boy, y'all, I tell you, when you work with juveniles, they're ruthless, aren't they? I'm lucky today, my wife gave me my allowance last night, but most of the time I open this up and there's no money in there, no skrill. So what they say? They start making fun of me, right? You're broke, you know? And what happens, if you see my pictures and you start making fun of my godson or my wife or whatever? It's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. Who likes that pain? Okay? So I use this analogy because we have to understand that if we're going to get out of closed thinking and we're going to open our mind, we've got to be honest with them. Don't sell them something that doesn't work. Tell them it's going to be painful. It's going to hurt for a little while. But unlike that dog chasing its tail going around in circles avoiding pain, you're going to be moving in the opposite direction toward ultimate meaning and fulfillment and a real sense of purpose in your life. So open thinking, like all responsible living, is sometimes mundane, boring, and very often painful. But in the end, it brings a sense of satisfaction, of meaning, and purpose. Okay, so be honest with your offenders when you're dealing with them and you're sharing these type of things with them. Our next gateway thinking error is victim stance. Okay? Victim stance is what I like to call, working with juveniles especially, is inauthentic living. Somebody give me some synonyms for inauthentic. Fraud, okay. Hypocritical. Well, you guys must work with adults, am I right? Not real, all right?
False.
False, or another word for false?
Fake.
Fake, okay. Phony, now we're on a roll. What? You ain't living real. You ain't true, okay? You're fake. You're phony. You're bootsy, all right? I don't know, but it means the same as fake and phony. I can't tell you exactly what it is. I just know how to use it in a sentence.
That's that lingo. Okay, we got it.
All right? So what we've got to understand here is their values, especially juveniles, place a high, high priority on being real, on being true. Okay? And you look at their heroes, their true heroes, they view as true. And the music they listen to, the ones they respect the most, are the ones that are keeping it real. All right? And so we turn it around on them. Inauthentic living, fake living, attacking the very idea that being fake is about the worst thing in the world you can be. All right? And this is what we're calling inauthentic living, fake living. Okay? And so number 2 thinking error, and it's also a gateway thinking error. All right? Any of you here got dogs you keep inside the house? All right? You guys ever have an accident with your dog inside? Yeah. It's an accident for you. They don't really care, right? Okay? When they have that accident, if you get it and clean it up right away, what stinks? Nothing. Now, if it happens when you first go to work and you clean it up, what stinks?
Whole house.
Okay, yeah, if you've been gone a long day, the whole house. Probably immediately, though, we got the area where it happened. Maybe the kitchen or the living room. Okay? It happened while you're gone on a long day and you had to go to church or a meeting at night and you come home, the whole house stinks, right? Happens on the first day of vacation, you got to go buy new furniture. You know what I'm saying? It stinks. It's seeped into the carpet. It's seeped into the paint. It's in your furniture. It stinks. Okay? Stinking thinking, the thinking errors we're talking about are the same way. You leave them in your brain for a little while before you clean them up. It's all right. If we attack it soon, we've minimized the damage. We leave it in there for a little bit longer, it starts to affect the rest of our life. We leave it in there for years and years, there ain't one aspect of our life that hasn't been affected. Now we've got to look at our spiritual life, our family life, our social life, and as we look at all these, we'll see, you know what? I do this everywhere I go. A gateway error, one that leads on to the rest of them. See, we have to understand that stinking thinking is kind of like coming home from the Y or your aerobics class, taking off your clothes, folding them up, and put them in the drawer with the rest of them. What happens? Everything stinks. Okay? So that's our gateway error, a little bit different way of looking at it for the juvenile. These are some of the things that we talk about when we're talking about what it is that makes up victim stance. Blaming others, making excuses. Those are the 2 big ones. Excusing things with but. See, we give them an inch. Well, I know you're right, and what I did wasn't exactly right. But, what follows a but? It stinks, that's right. But, you've got to understand, okay, we've got to call them out right there. You're in victim stance. And the first person we deceive is ourselves. That's right. Therefore, we have to understand that when we're into blaming, we're deceiving ourselves first. And once we've bought into it, then we can sell the rest of the world on it. I can go to that chaplain and tell him that it's not my fault that officer provoked me because I genuinely, deeply believe that. We use all kinds of things for excuses. You'll see race, gender, drugs, alcohol, our social status, society, the neighborhood I grew up in, my home, okay, my lack of transportation. It ain't my fault I lost that job. The bus didn't come on time. I was drunk when I did that. It ain't my fault. Okay, my parents raised me like that. It's all politics. That judge had to put me in wood. All right? The system is really why I'm here. They're running me around. They're messing me around. It's the system's fault, or it's genetics. You got to understand. They won't let me out of here till I get my GED. I'm not that smart. My parents dropped out of high school. I can't do this. You said it. You said it. Won't do it. Again, one of the things I want to sell, I want to address the value. All right? Our kids value reality, being real, being true. All right? So I'm going to take that value and I'm going to say, remember, when you're deceiving yourself with victim stance, are you living true? You're not even being true to yourself, much less to the rest of the world. That's why we call it fake living. If you want to get out of this, if you want to pull yourself out of this pit of victim stance, it's right there. Be real. because the first one we deceive is ourselves. Let's take responsibility and own up to what is really ours. So there's the angle I take with juveniles.
In a life before now, I was a paralegal for a very lucrative law firm. It was a law firm that had owned a Learjet, Jaguar, condos, all of this at our disposal to use. The senior attorney had made millions before he was age 40. And to me, you know, my position in that law firm was I was proud to be there, and I was making good money, and I wanted to be the very best. I didn't care how I did it. I walked all over my coworkers. Instead of being a mentor to the younger girls, I was a destructive role model to them because I wanted to be the best, and I didn't care how I got there.
You were the hub.
I was the hub of that law office, and I knew it couldn't. Now, I knew it couldn't run without this girl, right?
Okay.
Okay. And I learned to be deceptive, you know, when I would investigate a case. I was the best liar, you know, I'm proud of it, and all the things that I knew were wrong. And one of the number one rules for a paralegal is to never give legal advice. Well, you got it. I thought I was above the rules, and I was giving legal advice. I was on call 24 hours a day, so clients would call me at home. I would advise them. Attorney found out, he strongly recommended I found another job. But I was good, and he couldn't run without me, right?
Okay. Did they close now when you left?
Oh, no. And he made more millions right after that. So.
Okay.
It was very destructive for, it's not as dramatic as some of the stories here, but it's just as traumatic on me and my family.
Did you see there the different aspects of view self as a good person? Okay? There's some different aspects of this thinking error, about 3 that we usually bring out. The first one is that I can earn the right to do wrong. The good I do justifies whatever I want to do. As we said before, he made his money selling drugs, but he put his sister through school. And I have kids tell me all the time, you've got to understand, I take care of my family. I had to quit school. I had to sell drugs because my mama don't take care of us. I take care of my little sister. I have earned the right to do wrong. That's the first aspect of viewing self as a good person. The second aspect of viewing self as a good person is no matter how bad I am, at least I'm not, and you fill in the blank. How do we fill in that blank depends on where we're at. I teach this class at a local group home for pregnant girls, and they have foster kids in their organization, and they have teenage moms and teenage girls who aren't mothers yet. And the foster kids say, well, yeah, I get in trouble, but at least I'm not. At least I'm in foster care. I'm not in the group home. And the kids in the group home say, the girls say, well, you know, I'm here in the group home, but at least I don't have a child. And the teenage moms with a child say, well, yeah, I'm here and I'm in a group home, but at least I only have one child and not 2. There's always somebody we can find that's just a little step below us, at least in our own mind and in our own thinking, and that is view self as a good person. We call that elevator self-esteem, and that's for the third reason, the third aspect, of this is that our self-esteem goes up and down depending on what we do. You can meet somebody that is proud as they can be of the fact that they are the best thief they know. Proud as they can be of the fact that they can beat a urine test, no matter when you give it to them. I've got kids that are proud of how many people they've had sex with. Proud of how much they stole without getting caught. Proud of how they can run that whole institution, how they can manipulate, how much drugs I can sell. And you don't understand, I've got rank in my gang. Those foot soldiers do what I tell them to do. Now, are they meeting a basic need? Yeah. Are they going about it in the right way? No. Their strive for significance is going about in a completely wrong direction. And we call it elevator because as long as you can push those drugs, you're on top of the world. What happens when you get thrown in the cell? Whew. And I'm in a particularly neat spot because I can't go in and teach religion. I'm not a chaplain. I'm doing contracted services. And in the Department of Corrections, I challenge these girls. Tell me what it is you can hang your self-esteem on that doesn't rise and fall like an elevator. They try all kind of answers. It's family. Really, your family can't be taken away from you? Your family can't turn your back on you? It's my child. You sure about that one? They'll try all kind of answers, but we know there's only one answer to that question, don't we? And that's part of leading them to water. And we can't make them drink, but boy, I sure can get those wheels to turning. What is the one thing you can hang your self-esteem on? The one person that will never let you down, that will never walk away. And if those of you that are here that aren't chaplains per se, but have an opportunity, we're talking on break, some of you have the opportunity to legitimize yourself by taking this information to the staff, by showing them, you know, this isn't just something for the offenders, this is something for you. What is the thing that can keep your self-esteem from rising and falling like an elevator, going up and down? Okay? Now, another tool we use, and I just challenge you, use this. Use their prophets. Use their movies, okay? They have prophets. They have people that speak to them that they revere highly. Hollywood is some of their prophets, okay? I show Friday, the movie Friday. Anybody seen that? The youngest guy in the class. I find their prophet, Ice Cube. I play Friday. They know the lines before they come out of the TV. And we play it. I say, okay, now what is the philosophy he's espousing there? What is he selling on? And then I tell them, hey, bring in your music. I want you to show me this thinking error in your music. You think they find it? You bet they do. And they bring in their own prophets, the music they're pumping through their minds all the time. And we say, okay, now I want you to tell me what's wrong with this music. I don't need to tell you. You brought it in as an example of a thinking error. Yes, sir.
No, I'm just sitting here hanging on every word. I'm just thinking of these young, let me say this, young people running around with, small cars make big sounds. But, and they've got their earplugs on, which you can hear throughout the bus and so on. And what's being pumped into their heads to reinforce what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
The wrong thinking, which has to be broken.
And I have to think back to my own experience. And if you, chaplain, would have came to me when I was 19 and told me what I was listening to was awful, I don't think I can repeat what I would have told you.
Yeah.
All right? And so I wouldn't at all tell you to go tell them their music is garbage, because they ain't going to listen. They're closed thinkers. Okay? Get their wheels turning. I ask them, bring it in. Show me an example of closed thinking in their music. They bring it to me. Mm-hmm. They say, here's the closed thinking. I say, great. And we start there. They have just begun the process called critical thinking. And when they are critically analyzing things, I let the Holy Spirit be the Holy Spirit. I don't work on them. They start the process of critically analyzing things. And the Spirit working in their life, they're going to start listening to those things with a different ear. Instead of uncritically challenging everything that comes into their mind, I'm hoping they start thinking, what is this telling me? Because I'm not going to be there to hold their hand and think for them all the time. So we can start the process and get the ball rolling. I love to do that with movies. And what I'm going to do with you is what I do with my juveniles. We're going to watch a clip of a movie. I want you to find the thinking error. I want you to write down the quote. Remember, we can tell what you're thinking how? By what you say. So I want you to write down exactly what comes out of this guy's mouth that shows his thinking error. We've covered 3 so far. All right, closed thinking, victim stance, view self as a good person. I want you to find them, and as soon as this clip's over, we're going to review it real briefly. Dead Man Walking, Susan Sarandon, Sean Penn. I asked kids in my class, they said, who are they? We don't know who they are. I said, you don't know who Susan Sarandon is? No. So what about the other guy? You know who he is? No. Says his name's Sean Penn. Who's that? We don't know. Says he's married to Madonna. Finally, they knew somebody. He was married to Madonna? Yeah, I felt my age. Boy, that was a while ago. What we catch there? Got three aspects of view self as a good person. What did he say?
As far as a good person? he
Good
said-
person.
He wasn't lazy.
Yeah, he wasn't.
I'm not lazy. I'm not lazy. What else did he say? I'm not a victim. What else?
I'm innocent.
Yeah, and then
I ain't looking for no loopholes. I'm better than that old guy. I'm facing death and I'm not scared. Is he proud of something? Is he proud of the right thing? No. What else?
I'm innocent.
Yeah, I'm innocent. I'm innocent.
Everybody feels innocent.
Everybody is. Oh, yeah. They were all framed. How about this? A nigger on the gurney before me. I sure hope they cleaned it. Let me get this straight. You're a convicted murderer, sentenced to die by execution in a few days, but you're better than the last guy on the gurney because he was black and you're white. No matter how bad I am, I'm going to look around and find somebody less than me. How ridiculous is that? Utterly ridiculous. And we fill in that blank same kind of ways. No matter how bad I am, at least I'm not, that guy would fill it in black. And no matter how bad I am, at least I'm not, some people will say, a woman. We call that sexism. We call the first one racism.
Thank you, Lord, that I'm not a sinner like this man.
Thank you, Lord, that I'm not a sinner like this man. The Pharisee and the sinner praying. Which one left justified?
Republican.
Beating his breast, saying, God, have mercy on me. You already know the counter to this one, don't you? But if we can expose them to the idea that when you are looking down and you find someone beneath you, you can pat yourself on the back because you're in view self as a good person. You're locked into elevator self-esteem. Okay? And it's just a tool we use because, again, if we can get those wheels turning and get them to start thinking critically, hopefully they'll start critically analyzing other things that come in. And if they can look at that, and almost every one of them can look at that and hear that ridiculous statement, him on a gurney before me, I hope they cleaned it. All my kids will look at that and say that's ridiculous. And now they've taken the first step to seeing it in their own lives. That same group will now, when I say, well, no matter how bad I am, at least I'm not. Now they realize how they finish the sentence. So I would give you that tool. Use that tool. One of the things we do is we use their prophets. But the general idea of lack of effort is when the going gets tough, I quit. I'm headed for that goal. I'm headed for the pie in the sky, whatever the gift is. And the first obstacle that pops up, I quit. It's very much like this. You get in your car. You're already running late for school or work. You get going down the highway, and you've already been late for school so many times that one more means a Saturday school. And you get a mile from school, and you're just barely going to make it. And guess what you see? Road closed, detour. Now, most of us will say, okay, I'm going to take the detour, and I'm going to take the consequences that come with it. When we get into lack of effort, a lack of effort thinker slams on the brakes, turns around and goes backwards straight home and says, well, I tried.
Yep, that's right, there's thoughts.
I gave it my best, and my best wasn't good enough. We talk about levels of verbal commitment, and we talk about what does I try mean. I'll tell you, well, I try means I really ain't going to do this, but I'm going to tell you that so you'll leave me alone. We talk about I'll do my best. What does that mean? It means I'm telling you I'm going to give it a shot until it gets really difficult. So if I don't get it done, you stay off of me because I gave it my best. Don't you be down in my best. All right? So in the discussion of lack of effort, I'd like to talk to them about, and this is a technique I just want to give credit where credit is due. James Joyner from Grace Seminary taught me this tremendous tool of using their prophets. What are the goals that most people are seeking after? If we go out to our local high school and say, tell me what it is that's worth seeking after. We're talking about don't quit when the obstacles come up, but what is the goal on the other side that most people want? What are they going to say?
Success.
Success. How do we define success? Money. Fame. Popularity. What else?
Possessions.
Material possessions. What else?
Satisfaction.
What kind?
Self.
Self-satisfaction. How do we get self-satisfaction? Pleasure, right? Where's our pleasure?
Money, sex, or drugs.
Sex, drugs, there you go. Good times, right? And I told you earlier, one of them that our youth value more than anything else, because they've been, since the time were old enough to press a remote control, been sold commercials and lies of things that aren't as good as everybody claimed they were. And they value more than anything else to be true, to be real. And when you do that, you get respect. Every one of them will invariably, you ask this question, they want respect. And I guarantee you the offenders in your institution will tell you respect is a high commodity. So the next question is, who is it that you know that has achieved all of these things? And they start naming them off. They'll tell you the who's who in their world. And it changes. It's changed a few times since I've been in this business. And currently that list would include people like Suge Knight, people like Eminem, Slim Shady, they call him. Basketball players, Iverson, Kobe Bryant. Who are the people? And invariably, and sometimes the number one answer is a rapper called Tupac. Anybody here heard of him? Okay. That's how famous he is. And he's their prophet. And we talk to him and say, Tupac, did he have all these? We go through it. Did he have money? Bukus, boatloads. Did he have pleasure? Yeah. Was he lacking in sex? No. Was he lacking in any of these things that define success? No, he had it all. He had it all in the extreme. What did he have to say about it? In a song called So Many Tears, he says, I'm lost and I'm broken. Every step is a calculated move, bringing me closer to self-destruction. So don't stand near me. He says, I'm about to explode. And you can play it for them, or if you really want to impress them, you can quote it for them. And they're not going to question him. And so we turn it around and we say, now he had all of these things, right? And remember, the reason you respect him is because he kept it real. He was true. And Mr. True said, all of these things don't fulfill. I've got them all, and I'm lost and I'm weary, so don't stand near me. I'm about to explode. I'm on the edge of self-destruction. Now we led the horse to water. And now to get him to drink, to get those wheels turning, I ask him, what is it you're seeking after? What is it that's going to bring ultimate satisfaction and fulfillment? What is it that cannot disappoint when you get it in abundance? All of these things will ultimately be empty, and your prophet told me so. What's left? And I let them wrestle with the answer. And they'll try all kind of answers. They'll try money, success. They'll try family. I said, Tupac, he had family. His mom still loves him. She's in the papers now. What's the problem? What is it that he was missing? And they will find the answer sometimes. Sometimes they'll ask you the answer. And I love to give it to them. So I'm just giving you some tools here, and I hope you'll take them back and use them. Use their prophets. Use the stuff out of Hollywood. Use the music. Get them to analyze it critically. Get them to think about what they're buying into, their philosophies that are being espoused to them, and see if that can't lead them down the path of truth. That's, after all, is what we're there for, to take them to truth, to get them to understand a little bit about what we know so that they can begin to change their beliefs and the thinking that goes with that, and ultimately they will have better results and get what they want out of life. Other thing I like to do is have a little fun with them. And I call this the thrill-o-meter. We're going to graph the thrill. And I let them tell me, on a scale of 1 to 1,000, what was life like when you were out there living for the thrill? Living for the moment. Okay? When we're living for the thrill, what are they doing? Well, I'm out there, I'm having sex when I want to have sex. I stay out all night because I want to stay out all night, and I don't come home on my curfew time. I drink if I want to. I get high with my friends if I want to. I quit my job. I say, great, how was the thrill? They say, 1,000, baby. I say, all right, 1,000. And what was it like the next weekend? Oh, it was 1,000, baby. We partied all weekend. I said, how long? That kept on for a while. I said, all right. And the thrill stayed at 1,000. Oh, you know it, 1,000. I said, now what happened when you came home and your mom decided to put her foot down and you're grounded? Well, thrill dropped just a little bit. Of course, Mom wasn't too consistent, so it maybe dropped to about 800. All right, that's cool, 800. Now, you kept on living that lifestyle, and what happened when the cops came and got you and you went to the local youth center here at the Wood Youth Center? Well, the thrill dropped pretty sharply down to about a 5. I say, all right, and what about where you're at now? Because you're in long-term placement of the Department of Corrections now. Where's the thrill at now? Oh, man, they ain't got a number that low. Now, keep in mind, they're answering the questions for me. They're telling me all these numbers. And usually where they end up, they'll start at 1,000. They usually will end up at negative 1,000 because where they're at sucks. And they're happy to tell you, okay? Now, let's talk about responsible living. All right? When we're living responsibly, the first thing we have to do is get out of bed in the morning and go to school or go to work. How much fun is that? What do you think the number is they give me? 9 or 10? Might be for you, but not in my class. All right? My class, it's a 2 if I'm lucky. All right? We start out way down here. Keep in mind, this is a thrill factor of 1,000. All right? We start out at 2. And that's on Monday morning. What's it like going to school on Friday morning when you've been there all week? Oh, boy, it ain't got any better, that's for sure. All right? What's it like at the end of the semester when you passed your classes? Oh, we got a little more thrills. Much thrills getting high? Not yet. No. Okay. What happens if you make it through an entire school year without getting kicked out? What happens to the thrill factor? You guys didn't drink enough coffee this morning. On break, I want you to go get tanked up. What happens to the thrill at the end of the school year when you've actually passed and you're getting promoted to the next year? All right, we're going up. Or in the case of the kids that aren't working, when you get your GED, or when you get that paycheck at the end of the week, or when you pay your bills, yeah, now the thrill's going up. What happens when you walk down that aisle at graduation, or they hand you that GED that nobody can take away from you? Now where's our thrill factor? Yeah, now we're starting to get up there. Maybe it's not as much fun as getting high and doing whatever you want. I'll give them that. It's not as much fun. But the thing about it is, it ain't never going to be taken away. Now compare these two patterns. You were out there doing what you wanted to do, and when it came crashing down, baby, did it come crashing down. And down here, no, it wasn't fun for a while. And it may stay unfun for a while, but at the end of the day, they traded places. At the end of the day, they trade places, and we just keep hammering that home. Yes, getting up and being responsible is unfun sometimes, but boy, oh boy, it sure beats sitting locked up here at negative 1,000. And the beauty of it is they can't argue my numbers because they're not my numbers. They gave me those numbers. All right? Remember, you told me this information. So now when I showed them that according to their own numbers, they would rather have this Then this, they don't argue because I say, remember, you gave me these numbers. All right, so just a technique you can try out there when you're working with young people when we're talking about lack of interest in responsible performance or living for the thrill. I call it living for the thrill. A little easier handles you can put on these things, the better. Another one I like to do is talk about pretend. Now, I'm no artist. Pretend this is your piece of cake on your plate. It's not a big enough piece of cake for me. All right. Where do you start eating your piece of cake?
Away from the icing.
Away from the icing. Away from the icing. Most of you agree? Yeah, most of us do agree. Where do most of my students start? At the icing. Why?
Get all the fun over with.
Get the best first.
Life is uncertain. You might not get to the end of that cake. Let's get the thrill first. Okay, let's get the fun stuff out of the way. And then what's left over, we'll find a way out of it. I'll throw it away. I'll put it in the trash. I'll find a way out of the unfun stuff, but I'm getting the thrill over with first. People who live for the thrill are people who eat dessert first. Our clients love to eat dessert first. I ask my kids, tell me, you eat dinner around 6 at this facility. What happens if at 5 o'clock you go get yourself a king-size Snickers bar, you know, one of those things about 14 inches long, and you get a big-size Mountain Dew, one of those king-size gallon bladder busters, right? And you slam that thing at 4 o'clock. What's going to be happening at dinner time? You going to be hungry? You ain't going to touch your food. Now let's keep moving with that. You do that the next day, and you eat your dessert about 4 o'clock, and you don't eat your dinner. You going to be hungry? I mean, when it's dinner time, you going to be hungry? No. Let's keep doing this. Let's live our life this way. 2 things are going to happen. What's the obvious one? We're going to get fat. Okay, we're going to gain a bunch of weight because we're eating, and because the calories we're eating are empty, what else is going to happen? We're going to be malnourished. We're going to be overweight and malnourished at the same time. That's what happens when we live for the thrill. Our lives become fatty, sluggish. We don't have the things we want. Our body, our mind, our home, our job is not the things we want because we did all the fun. We didn't delay our gratification. And we're malnourished. We're wasting away. We're unsatisfied. We have no sense of meaning and purpose. Another thing I compare it to, I said, what happens when now picture it's July, 95 degrees out there, okay, and you're out at an all-day picnic or you're at Cedar Point, it's about 95 degrees, and you go get yourself a great big pop. You slurp on that thing. Does that quench your thirst?
No.
For a second. I mean, come on. When you're sipping that pop, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola ain't making millions of dollars because the stuff it doesn't taste good at all, right? It quenches your thirst, right? But what happens after a few seconds? Yeah, I got to have another sip and another sip. That sugar in your mouth, you just keep wanting more and more. And you drink, the 32 ouncer, and you get done, and what's happening? You satisfied? I got to have another one, right? Now you keep doing this all day. It's about 95 degrees. How do you feel about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Ooh. You got that sugary, nasty feeling in the pit of your stomach, right? That feeling like, oh, I'm not even hungry. I ain't ate all day, done nothing but drank pop, but I ain't even hungry. And you got that taste in your mouth because that sugar kind of, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh man, I'm thirsty. My mouth is dry. It's kind of like that dog chasing its tail. We go around and we almost get it. And we say, I almost got that sucker. I'm going to go a little faster this time and I'm going to get it right. So we go around again. And we say, I almost got that thing this time. I almost got what I wanted. So we go around again a little bit faster. And we keep going and going and going. And one of these times we actually catch our tail. What happens when a dog catches its tail?
Falls down because he's so wore out from chasing her all the time, he's wore out.
That could happen. It hurts. That stupid animal bites his own tail. He gets just exactly what he wants, and he yelps and lets go. That hurts. That is living for the thrill. And we chase it, and we say, well, you know what? This boyfriend is going to do it for me. This sexual conquest is going to do it for me. This weekend of partying is going to do it for me. Joining this elite social club is going to do it for me. Getting one more notch in my gang, becoming one higher rank, and then I'm going to be there. And we keep going around and around faster and faster, and when we finally get what we want, we yelp and let go. That's what happens when we live for the thrill. We keep going around and around like that dog chasing its tail. And when we finally get that thing that we think is going to ultimately satisfy, it just hurts. Their life experiences confirm this. And you can ask them, what happened when you finally got what you wanted? I found it empty and wanting. And have the pleasure then, because a lot of them will ask me, what do you do now? What is it you live for? And I have the pleasure of telling them, there is something that will ultimately fulfill, and you can stop chasing your tail. I sure am glad you asked me the question. If you'll give me just 1 second, I'm going to cue up a video, and we're going to move on to living to lack of time perspective. Number 6, I want to get this video exactly in the right spot here. And the reason I use this is because, again, if you go mention Friday, they can tell you all the characters in this movie. And they can quote the lines for you as we're watching this movie. I like to use their prophets to speak to them, because when Ice Cube agrees with me, I've just gained a lot of credibility that I don't have walking into that room. What we didn't pick up there right before the scene began, the guy on the right, the guy in the flannel jacket, Ice Cube, had just lost his job. And the title of the movie is Friday. And he says to him, the guy on the left, the guy that was doing the twitching, Smokey, for obvious reasons, says, it's Friday, Craig. You ain't got no job. We're going to get you high. That is, in a nutshell, lack of time perspective. We're going to live for right now. There is no tomorrow. You ain't got no job, nothing else to worry about. You might as well get high. He talked about the mule with blinders on. And then if any of you live in the middle of Amish country like we do, we can ask them. I ask them, you ever drive out in the country? Out in Amish country? Yeah, Amish. And they see the guys with the horses and the carts. And I ask them, what's on those horses? And they know, blinders. Now, I've had all kind of interesting names when I say, what are those things on their eyes? So, shades. All kind of names. But the blinders on them, what are they on there for? Well, they know. They're there so that when the horse is going down the road and the car drives by, he doesn't get spooked. We're the same way. See, if I'm going and I'm about to use my drug of choice, I have to put my blinder on this side and ignore what the past has taught me about that. Because if I see the past and all the painful lessons I've learned, I'm going to get spooked. And if I look at my future and how this is going to wreck or potentially wreck my future, then again, I'm going to get spooked. I have to put those blinders on each side. And only when focused on the very narrow here and now, the present, can I go ahead and engage in that risky behavior. So that's just a little slight modification of the illustration you were given just a minute ago. One thing I use to overcome this is the swap method. And I'll do this. Set a reasonable goal. What is your goal? And we start with short term. Where would you like to be in 1 month? What is your reasonable goal? Maybe it's to have a job. I had a kid tell me, I just want to get out of foster care. Okay, what do you need to do? What is the second one? What do I need to do to accomplish that? What do you need to do to get out of foster care? Well, his answer was, I got to get and hold a job. They've already told me that. All right, so we've got the first step. Assess what obstacles are in the way. A, Assess what obstacles are in the way. And plan to overcome them. When we assessed what obstacles were in the way for the young man that wanted to get out of foster care, needed a job, we didn't have transportation. The train tracks ran between his place and the place where he would have to go to work. He needed to make sure he left early so he didn't lose that job. He needed to make sure he could pass the drug screen when he goes in to take it and get the job. Those were all the obstacles, and we had to plan to overcome those obstacles. I'll tell you, if you work with young people, anybody 21 or younger, this is an uphill battle. They firmly believe they have no future. Trying to get them to plan for their future is a complete uphill battle. They have been, particularly kids that are in foster care or placement, have been jerked from one home to another by factors completely out of their control for so long that when you try to get them to plan more than today or tomorrow or next week, they have no vision. They look into the future and they see kind of this black ominous cloud. It may happen, it may not. Kids that have been involved in gangs do not plan on living past the age of 21. They've had so many friends killed that when you talk about, well, where would you like to be when you're 30 years old, you might as well be speaking in Chinese at that point. So I start, where would you like to be in 30 days? Something reasonable, something attainable, something in their own mind will click and it will make sense. Something that's going to overcome what pop culture is ramming down their throat, and that is, it's Friday, you might as well get high, you ain't got no job, you ain't got nothing to lose, you ain't going to live long anyway, you're probably going to get killed on the streets like a lot of your friends have. You look into the future, you see either death or prison, and we've got to start small. That's a huge uphill battle, and we can't take it on by saying, where would you like to be in 5 years? I mean, you might as well get out your Greek New Testament and read from it. Where would you like to be next week? Where would you like to be in 30 days? Let's plan for that. And if we can get through this for the 30 days, then we're going to look at 60 and 90. If they're real courageous and real successful with what we've done so far, and they're able to fight this lie, this myth that pop culture is pumping down their throat, of you might as well just go get high and have fun because there's nothing else to do. If you can get over that, then, and only then, might you get and go for something like 6 months or 1 year. That's what I've found. That's what I'm telling you is what I've found when I work with youth. That when they look into the future, they see nothing but a dark, ominous cloud. They don't believe anything's going to happen that's under their control. Do you have any questions? We've got just a minute or two. Any questions about either one? Lack of time perspective or living for the thrill?
Some of the kids in church groups I've worked with, I mean, they're not, where the kids are that you're working with, but you see a lot of this in some church kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how much, I don't know. It's frustrating sometimes to move them to that next higher level, and I guess you're saying make sure you start by giving them a workable, reasonable goal.
It's got to be attainable. It's got to be something that they can look at and say, this can really happen. And most kids, I'm telling you, if you start talking about 1 year or 5 years off the bat, you lost them already.
And is it because
Save
they're
your breath.
so me and now oriented?
No, I really firmly believe, I grew up with this, and this is something people in my generation still face, I mean, for me to take out a 30-year loan for my house was insane. 30 years? You got to be kidding me. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing a year from now. And for many of my peers, it's the same way, and I am a decade removed from the kids I'm working with. So it's something that has come into our culture. I think it has to do with the fact our culture is more mobile and versatile, and almost every kid has moved 2 or 3 times. Even kids from affluent middle-class homes move and relocate, sometimes different areas of the country, particularly kids that are from military or ministry backgrounds. There's just not a whole lot to plan for because everything seems out of control. And your kids that are in your youth group are going to say, well, it's all up to God anyway. You know, they may honestly, genuinely feel, I don't know, I don't have that control over my life.
Do you think that the world situation, along with the millennium change and everything else, enters into that?
Yeah, I think that's all just kind of like a big landslide coming at them with everything that's in our culture. I mean, our culture is pumping right now, today. On top of that, you have other factors that just affirm that over and over again. Okay? You moved when you were 6, you moved when you were 10, and you moved when you were 14. And you're telling me you want me to plan for when I'm 19? Well, I'll be in a different state by then.
Yeah, I've seen kids with T-shirts on with the atom bomb. And
Yeah.
it says Miller Time.
Yeah.
Oh,
That is exactly
That
it.
brought my mind up, but that was about 6-7 years ago.
Mhm.
I realized that's what they're thinking.
This is not a new thing in terms of this is something that came out in the past year or two. This is a decade old, I would say. I'd say your kids in their 20s are dealing with this.
Well, there's a guy at work that I work with that's about in his mid-20s, and he wears a T-shirt that says, "If I was God, everybody would be dead."
Yeah. Yeah. Very fatalistic subculture with the younger people. Very fatalistic. I tell you what, we're going to move on to number 7, which is called fear of fears. Fear of fears is the idea that we grow up and when we become adults, we are more afraid to express fear than we are of things that we should be afraid of. I like to distinguish between a healthy and an unhealthy fear. Another way of saying this is the rational versus irrational. All right? Now, I'm going to ask you I'm going to give you a fear, and I want you as a group to call out pretty much in unison what you think it is. And we'll just, kind of like you see on TV, you know, the ayes have it, or if you've been to a business meeting, the ayes have it or the nays have it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to tell you a fear, and I want you to say your opinion, healthy or unhealthy. So the first fear is the fear of guns. Healthy. All right. The fear of snakes.
Healthy.
What do you mean it could be unhealthy?
Well, because, you know, some people are really afraid of airplanes. I mean, they've had bad experience. Snakes won't, not all snakes hurt you. I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to be a health. I mean, it's not healthy to be afraid of snakes. I mean, some people, that's their pets. That's their babies.
Have you picked up a rattlesnake lately?
We're not saying rattlesnakes. He said snakes. To a hunter, guns aren't unhealthy. They're healthy. I mean,
So
it's
what
not
are you trying to tell me?
I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just.
They could go.
I'm glad I did this after break. You tell you got some coffee, you guys are reacting with me now. All right.
I guess you're just giving general, like the word, like not all guns, it's not rational to be afraid of all guns, or it's not rational to be afraid of all, grass snakes you don't have to be afraid of, okay, rattlesnakes, Ed. But,
It's the person that.
yeah,
that,
I mean, height.
Whether it's healthy or unhealthy.
Yeah, don't.
It's the person?
That many things determine whether it's healthy or unhealthy. I think.
What determines whether it's healthy or unhealthy?
Situation, individual.
Perception? Really? So if I point a 45 at your face, it depends on whether or not you perceive that it's dangerous. Who agrees that it's perception? It's loaded.
It's not healthy.
I think it's your past experience.
Don't get too existential on me. Huh?
Your past experience with whatever it is that we're talking about.
How many times you been bit by a rattlesnake?
No,
If I throw one on that table, what are you going to do?
I don't be afraid of that.
Is it past experience?
No.
What is it?
Throw it on this table, we're gonna have another door going out the.
Hold on, we got a soft little voice I want you to hear.
How we let it affect us,
How we let it affect us. What's the it?
whatever the item is.
How we let this thing affect us?
I would let fear affect us.
How we let fear affect us.
How about?
That's part of it. Let me ask
How
you
we
something.
process fear.
Let me ask you something. If I come in here and I have a rattlesnake in a cage. How many of you, and the cage has got a lid on it, and I put this big glass cage up in front, how many of you are going to get up and jump up and run out of here? If I take the lid off, how many are going to run out?
I'm out of here.
If you ran off, when I roll that rattlesnake in here, Tom, go ahead and bring the rattlesnake in. If I roll that rattlesnake in here on the cage and I put it right in here, if I get up and jump up and I scream and shout and I run out of here, now, what have you just done to yourself? Have you preserved your life? Have you saved yourself from danger? No. Matter of fact, you've done just the opposite. You made yourself kind of look like a fool. You may sprain your ankle on the way out. If I take that cage off and the situation changes, and now that snake has the potential of killing you, and you jump up and run out of here screaming and shouting the whole way, have you just preserved your life? Very possibly. The chances are a whole lot better. You guys did just exactly what my classes do. I start throwing out enough of these and they start realizing, wait a minute, no, there's situations where it doesn't matter. In the right situation, the fear of snakes is very healthy. It preserves my life. In another situation, the same fear of the same object with the same past experience threatens my life or controls. All right? This healthy fear and unhealthy fear. That's what makes the real difference in whether it preserves your life or threatens and controls, unnecessarily limits. I like to use that word, limits my life. I'm so scared of airplanes I can't go see my dying mother in the hospital because I'd have to take an airplane. What have I just done? I've limited my life. Okay? I'm so scared of guns, my brother, not this one, but another one, had a paintball gun that was given to him, very expensive paintball gun that a woman at work gave to him because her husband had it downstairs in the basement, a paintball gun, downstairs in the basement because she didn't want any guns of any kind in her house. And I'm not trying to down someone's belief about weapons or not, but I'm saying she has, you have to admit, limited her life, and this fear is controlling her. To the point that my suspicion is it caused a little bit of friction in that marriage. All right? Now, I'm going to ask you all, what do you remember, men especially, I really want you to think about this, but women too, because it's usually not too different. Think back to your childhood, 3, 4, 5 years old, and I want you to remember the first time that you can remember, the first memory you have of expressing fear to someone, saying, I'm scared. Yes, sir.
My father, when I was little, my father got chickens,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a mean rooster,
Mm-hmm.
and the root, you couldn't go in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had to go outside. I was scared to go outside, scared of the rooster.
Mm-hmm. What'd he do?
He'd get you.
No, what did your dad do? And those roosters will get you, because I've been got before. I got one got me on the back of the leg through jeans, and I was like, man, that little rooster did that.
When we went outside, he put the rooster in the coop, keep the rooster in the coop. Because he couldn't let him, when we was little, he couldn't let us in the yard at the same time as him. So he put the rooster in the coop.
Put the rooster in the coop, and he didn't have any problem with you being scared.
He didn't say nothing about that. He just said, I'll put him up.
Really? What's your experience?
I was young, and I had a cousin who died of sudden infant death syndrome, and we went to the funeral, and I can remember my aunt was just losing it, and everybody was crying, and I could see this baby that she didn't look real, and we went back to my aunt's house that night, and they made me spend a night in the house where the baby died.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking this baby was standing looking at me somewhere. And I was crying and crying, and they came and my mom said, you know, this is ridiculous, you gotta knock this off. No baby, the baby's gone, you're making your aunt even worse. And I was afraid. I mean, it stuck with me for a long time that the baby was coming.
Ridiculous. Knock it off. Yes. That's more typical. And what you're saying came from your brother-in-law is more typical. I was very surprised to hear you say your dad put the rooster up. Because what my dad would have done is said, boy, you get out there, you're bigger than that rooster.
Yeah.
How many of you think your dad would have said something similar? I did this in a group of counselors one time. I mean, we're talking about healthy people. Who as healthy as counselors can be. You got one for me?
Yeah, my grandfather passed away when I was 3. And I had never been away from my mother very much. And my mother had to leave to go to be with her family. And I had an aunt that came and stayed for a few days until the day of the funeral. And my dad and my sister and I were all going on to the funeral then. And I can remember I missed my mother so much. And I cried and cried and cried. And I even got so sick I threw up. And my aunt came to clean me up, and she said, you're just being a baby. Now cut it out.
Just being a baby. Ridiculous. Knock it off. Don't be a sissy. What does fear get us in life? Expressing fear gets us what? Loving, warm acceptance? Or rejection? Rejection. Show of hands. Who likes rejection? Almost fooled somebody over here. Okay? Nobody likes rejection. It goes against our very grain. We learn from the time of our earliest memories what fear gets us. And it's a hard lesson learned. When someone we love and respect, want acceptance from, says sissy, or worse. And then as we grow up, it comes from our peers. And we learn what happens when we express fear. Our peers reject us. Okay? Sooner or later, this association becomes so much so that in our minds, and even more solidly so in our clientele's mind, is that fear equals rejection. Rejection, we already know, equals pain. And we say we all have 2 goals in life. One is to go my own way, and the other one is to avoid immediate pain. I don't like pain. I have a pretty high tolerance for pain, but I still don't like it. No one here enjoys pain. We avoid pain. Sometimes we avoid pain at all costs. Sometimes we avoid pain so much so that we won't speak in front of people. Because if you get up here and teach this class, one of them might laugh at you. And laughing means rejection. And rejection is pain. But what do I say? I'm scared to speak in front of people? What do I say? Well, I'm not good in front of people. I say, well, I just don't have the talent. I say, well, you know, I just had a bad experience when I was a child. We make the most elaborate structure of excuses rather than say the simple truth, I'm scared. Why won't we say I'm scared? I'd rather say I'm too stupid to speak in front of somebody than to say I'm scared. Yeah. Fear doesn't get us anywhere. I did this exercise with a group of counselors. One of the counselors said to me when I was a child, I got whooped by a boy. Came home, my mom said, you leave this house and don't you come back till you whoop him. Come home crying. When I was an adult, I'll tell you what kind of house I grew up in. When I was an adult, I came home from a semester in England. Now, I learned when I was 5 years old. 5 years old. Real men drink their coffee how? Black. No cream, no sugar. I went over to spend a semester abroad when I was 21 as an adult. Over there in England, they put milk in your coffee unless you ask for it specifically. Well, you do that for 3 or 4 months, you develop a taste for it, and you find out that nasty bitter coffee you've been drinking all your life tastes a lot better with some milk in it. Okay? I came home and asked for cream in my coffee at our first family gathering. My mother said to me, "What? You sissy." We live in a machismo society. So much so that even women, and more so men and criminal men, the men we find in our institutions, are not going to express fear. The boys I work with would rather go to their grave with flags flying than to say, I'm scared. And I ask these kids 2 questions for their homework every time we come to this lesson. 1, tell me a time when you were scared and admitting fear saved your life. I've had all kind of stories. I wouldn't go joyriding. I didn't want to do a drive-by. One guy said we were in a house. My cousin had gotten in a fight with a bunch of these guys, and we were in the house, and 2 carloads of them came out. I said, I ain't going out there. I ain't messing with 2 of them. Other one said, well, I ain't scared, and went out and got killed in the front lawn. So we have to understand that in our clientele's mind, this distinction does not exist. There is no healthy, there is no unhealthy fear. It's all one. Showing fear is always unhealthy. And we have to teach them there is a difference. It is just as unhealthy to be scared of everything, to put everything into the healthy fears category and say, I'm scared of a gardener snake. That's totally unhealthy. And it's totally unhealthy to put everything in this category and say, every fear is irrational. I'm not scared of dying. I'm not scared of guns. I'm not scared of 20 guys when they pull up in my yard. They're both as unhealthy, and we have to teach them that the pain of going through rejection is the only way. Don't sell them short. Don't tell them, well, you can get through. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you don't learn to face pain, and if you don't learn to look at your peers and tell them I don't do that anymore and face that rejection, you're going to come back and see me. And that's okay. I get paid to teach these classes. You don't have to do it. I make a good living and I have fun with it. But if they want to change their life, you have to convince them they're going to have to show fear. And they're going to have to understand what it means to look someone in the eye and tell them they're scared and feel that pain of rejection. Going through pain. Where are they going to get the strength to do that? Only one place I know of. And we can point them to the answer. Power thrust is about anger. And since we have to change mics, I'm going to just give you one of the tools I use for juveniles, and you'll get what it's all about. It's mainly about 2 issues, power and control. All right? Usually what fuels this most of the time is anger. All right? Power and control. Power thrust is about those 2 issues. When we get angry, we immediately respond with power and control. When someone comes and pushes our buttons, our immediate response is to one-up the situation. And then we go one-up. I use the movie Tombstone for this. The first half hour of that movie, there's more power thrusts than you can count. Okay? We're slapping people, you get mad, we shoot people, and we talk about the progression. And the progression is always starts out and somebody one-ups. You start out with a verbal insult. Somebody shouts. They respond by standing up. I respond to standing up by smacking you. We one-up and one-up until somebody backs down or somebody is killed. And we talk about how can we beat this? Well, levels of anger. Our anger is like a glass. Imagine yourself as a glass, and our anger is the water in it. If I'm walking around with this glass full, and I hand you this glass, and I say, I want you to take this glass full of water downstairs to the cafeteria, down those stairs, around those tables to the cafeteria. What are his odds of making it without spilling a drop? What would it take to upset him? Very little. The slightest bump, he'd probably trip over this cord walking out. He'd probably be staring at the glass. Okay? Also, now I take this guy, I've got a full glass of water. Your goal is to get downstairs without spilling a drop and do it in 1 minute. Now what are the odds of him spilling the glass? Yeah, and this time because he's in a hurry, when he spills a glass, it's probably not going to be one little drop, is it? Probably going to go all over the place. If By contrast, if I give you that same glass, same water, but this time there's this much in it, what are his odds of success? Yeah, really good. Take the analogy. We're the glass, the water's our anger. If we walk around with our glass full, we're going to spill some out with the least provocation. And when life comes along and rushes us and hurries us, and the baby's crying and the teacher's on your case and the parents are riding you, it's going to spill. By contrast, if I can do something to drain that glass, if I can keep that level down here low, and I will use proactive means, what can you do? You know, if you're out partying all night and come to school hungover, you're probably going to cuss the teacher out. All kind of proactive means that we can use to get this glass empty. Where's your glass? And the more we can drain it, the better. And kids will tell you, because I ask them, what do you do? They'll tell you, we pray when we do our Bible study, because there's something about spirituality that drains that glass for us, that keeps that level of anger under control. That's where you as chaplains can come in. That's where you as workers who aren't chaplains can give them keys and say, you know, I've noticed you're walking around angry. You're not going to be able to keep that glass from spilling out. How can I help? It's real similar to the idea we're about to talk about, and that's number 9, uniqueness. Uniqueness, like many of the thinking areas, has 2 facets that are linked together. The first facet is that I'm too slick to get caught. And the second one is, the rules don't apply to me. Now this is similar to number 3, view self as a good person, for a couple of reasons. And the most obvious link between them is self-esteem. We get ourselves in trouble when our self-esteem is too high. We talked about earlier yesterday how kind of society's bought into this idea that self-esteem's a cure-all. We can just inject a little self-esteem in everybody, they'll be all right. And we have to talk about the difference between self-esteem and self-respect. This gets me in trouble. I ask the kids when this gets me in trouble, and I want them to remember uniqueness gets me in trouble when my self-esteem is out of control, when it's too high, when I think that I am too slick to get caught. I have developed the most unique, the best way in the world to beat a urine test. I can't be fooled. And I'll have kids that say, you know, I beat a urine test 19 times. So why are you here? Well, the 20th one got me. You know, or the rules don't apply to me. And when we're dealing with this, this is another one that our culture is really reinforcing and pumping. And I love to have them bring in music and talk about this one and get them to identify in what's going on around them, the thinking errors that they're buying into. And can they see these? I like to use the movie The Godfather. And I make the point with them, who is he really saying that the rules don't apply to? Whose rules don't apply to him? God's. He's so far beyond things he can lie to his wife and she'll never figure it out at the end of the movie. He says, no, I have no problem. No, I'm not in anything illegal. No, I had nothing to do with my brother-in-law's death. And he lies to his wife, and he lies to God. He lies to the priest. None of the rules apply to him. And when we buy into this idea that I'm different, that there is something about me that's separate than someone else, that I can get away with this, then we have elevated ourselves to the point we have bought into a dangerous lie. And that lie can take us into all kinds of places that none of the rules apply to me. I can't be caught. I'm too slick to be caught. I can walk in and steal. I had girls that had the beautiful plan going on. See, they have where they work those gift cards that are like credit cards. And they would ring all kind of things up on those stolen gift cards. And it was pretty slick because
How were they to know? But they got them. They somehow, I'm not even sure how, the store managed to catch up with them. But they had already gotten several $100s worth of merchandise. The idea was that the rules don't apply, and this is so slick, they're never going to catch up to me. That's the idea of uniqueness. And when I use The Godfather, I'll show them the cover on the tape. Does anybody remember what's on the box? The movie The Godfather? Huh?
Just remember the pictures are sliced.
What if I do this? Does it bring back any memories?
Yeah, pause
Huh? You can't pause it. No.
It's a guy with a hand and he's controlling the little puppet.
He's controlling a puppet.
Oh, that's-
Yes. The hand controlling the strings. And toward the end of the movie, when the older Don is passing it on to his son, he says, I never thought you would be the one controlling the strings, manipulating people, the one so far above everyone else that you are God, pulling the strings, manipulating people to do what you want them to do because the rules don't apply to you. You're gone. You're a God. And you can look in the face of God and say, the rules don't apply to me. If we can get them, the ones that are interested in spirituality, to understand the rules do apply. And if we don't answer for it in this life, we may be able to get by with it 99 times. But it's the 100th one that'll catch up to us. So that's the idea that we can use with uniqueness, or the idea of uniqueness, and some of the counters we can use, and some of the tools. Did you have, your music is for ownership, isn't it? I asked them to bring in music for uniqueness. Invariably, they will bring in music that has some reference to Don, such and such. I'm the last Don. I'm the Don. I'm the man in control. I'm the one. All these other people aren't like me. I've got a new spin on things. I'm too slick to get caught. And so I get them to analyze it, and they'll say, there it is. There's the thinking here. So I'll challenge you to use that tie-in and to point them in that direction. And I'm going to show you a tool that I use with juveniles. And it's a lot of fun to bring out the ownership, the latent ownership attitude that many of them had. All right, here's the game, guys. This is called the Prisoner's Dilemma. Here's the deal. Both of these fellas have been arrested for a crime. And like good police officers, we've got them isolated. I'm going to have one of you go in that corner and one of you go in this corner. I'm going to ask you to play fair. And when you speak low enough the other one can't hear you, as if you were in separate, being questioned separately at the police station. And they're going to tell their lawyers each round whether they're going to cooperate with the police and tell on their partner, or whether they're going to not cooperate and not say a word to the police about the crime. Okay? Now, what happens in real life situation if both of these guys don't tell on the other one? They'll probably get off. All right. So if they both don't cooperate, they're going to each get a point. Because they're both going to get off. Or at least get a lighter sentence, because remember, they've been arrested. So the judge has some leniency. So the police don't have quite as much evidence if they don't talk. Now, what happens if one of them says, I'm not going to cooperate, I'm not going to cooperate, I'm not going down with this guy, I'm going to tell on him. I am going to cooperate, I'm not going down with this guy, I'm going to tell on him.
Both of them get hit.
Does he? Is that what happens?
Somebody
Somebody gets off. You cooperate, we'll give you immunity. At least that's the way it works on TV. I don't really know. Okay? So the other one, who says, I am going to stick with my partner, I'm not going to tell on him, and the other one sings like a bird, cooperates. Here we go. The talker is going to get 2 points. He walks away. He gets no sentence. He gets off. His buddy get screwed, 0. Okay? And the other option is they both say, I'm going to talk. Oh, I'm going to tell on him. Yeah, me too. What happens there? They both lose. They both lose. Okay? We got them where we want them. There's going to be 10 rounds. We're going to see who scores the highest. All right? 10 rounds. Each round you can score points in one of these 3 ways. All right? So you've got a decision to make each round. I'm going to talk, in which case, if I talk, I could get 2 points if he doesn't talk. But if my partner does talk, then we're both going to get 0. Or you could both not talk, and you both get 1 point. So you got a decision to make, whether or not you trust your partner in crime. So one of you, if you would, go back to the back corner, and the other one up here in this corner. Look at them, you breaking the rules already. I knew I had the criminals. I knew I had them. All right, we need the respective lawyers to go to them. If you would go all the way back where you can't see him, I need their respective lawyers. Okay. Representing our first client, what do we got, Bill? Is he talking or not?
He's gonna talk.
He's going to talk.
No, we're not talking.
You're not talking. So your guy walks, your guy gets screwed. All right. You're a great lawyer. Good job. All right, round 2.
Better do better this time.
Score's
That's why he's
2-0.
court- That's why he's court appointed.
All right, come on forward. All right, he went first last time. What's your client going to do?
We're gonna talk.
You're going to talk. You're going to cooperate with the police. What's your client going to do?
We're gonna cooperate also.
All right, no points for either one of you. Go on back, round 3. What do you got, Ray?
We're going to cooperate as usual.
We're gonna fight this thing.
You're going to what?
We are not gonna cooperate.
You're not going to cooperate.
No.
Holy moly, okay.
Burn each other.
Ray got 2 points.
That's amazing.
Really? Again, next round, 7. Come on in. Come on in. Let's see what's going on then.
Bring these guys forward so that we can send them to Georgia and get them executed. Yeah.
Bill?
I could be finished
Bill?
with lunch.
Okay.
Bill? What do you got, Ray?
Talk time.
Talking. What are you doing?
We're gonna go ahead and talk.
You're going to go ahead and talk. Okay, 0s, locked in. All right, everybody take their seats.
Again.
Congratulations, you both got the high score of 2 for a combined score of 4, one of the lowest I've ever had.
So you get 18.
Both of your clients lost because they got sold out. Notice what happened. In the first round, somebody tried to cooperate. This the only way this can happen, 2-0, is one person said, I'm going to trust you. Smitty, that was your philosophy. Where you at? Smitty, that was your philosophy, wasn't it? We're going to try to score this together, 10 each.
Yeah.
Combined score of 20.
Yeah.
Your philosophy was,
The name of the game, get down first.
I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna get mine.
And that changed my attitude.
And that changed your attitude. We said right in here, I asked you the question, what are they afraid to do? What is it? Trust. They're afraid to be vulnerable. And when you tried to be vulnerable, you came around and said, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to extend a hand. How was he treated? He got the car door slammed on that hand.
That was my lawyer's idea.
Yeah. You came back and said, I told you so.
Now we don't pass history.
Yeah.
If
And
he
you-
had changed right there, I would have very possibly, but when he changed there, I told Ray, I said, let's give him one more chance on 7.
Uh-huh.
And if he doesn't talk.
Then we'll keep going.
Then we'll try to see how it goes. But I knew how many points I was gonna have.
You weren't going to risk it again.
I was even right there, so I said, hey, we got nothing.
You weren't about to risk vulnerability again. Your lawyer talked you into it, and you weren't going for it ever again.
Not until he showed me he was willing.
Now, we can take the game away, and how far are we from our philosophy on life? This little fun game of us laughing and hee-hawing for the past 10 minutes, and Bill mumble-mouthing around, has shown us by and large, our philosophy on life, hasn't it? I will try to trust you once. I will extend cooperation. And if you slam that door, my hand in the door, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to have to walk a long way to come back and get me to trust you again. And Smitty says, matter of fact, I saw he was willing to trust me here, but he had to prove it. He had to do it again. The attitude was, people are objects to be used for my pleasure. I'm going to use you to get me out of jail for my best interest. What do we use people for? Very rare we use people to get out of jail, but we will use them for sex. We will use them for money. We will put them in our congregation. We'll be glad to have them attend chapel so that our numbers look good on our report. What do we use people for? What do we get out of it? And the flip side is, particularly when you're working with females who tend to be on the underside of this relationship, the one being used, what do they get out of it? What do you get out of selling a part of yourself and being owned? Well, you get self-esteem. You get security. You get somebody taking care of you. And we will have offenders who say, yeah, I'll let the other guy score high, 20 points. I don't care. Why? Because now they're going to be taken care of. When they get their candy, at the end of the day, they'll share. Because you helped me out. So we can explore, use this little tool of fun and games to explore what is really the attitude underneath. And let's talk about what thinking is driving this. And it's the same thinking you use in relationships. And the same thinking that landed you a lot of times right where we are.